Shalom uvracha. We're sitting together in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, studying the section of the Torah that deals with Am Yisrael coming back to Eretz Yisrael. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz. This is the section of study of the entrance of the Jewish people into the land, and we're privileged this evening to study about ki tavo, as each of us here has, thank God, on some level accomplished that which the Torah section speaks about arriving in the Holy Land. And at the very beginning of our Torah study of this week in Parshat Ki Tavo, there's a recall as they're bringing certain special sections of donations to the temple. They review Jewish history somewhat, and they mention the experience in the land of Egypt. And what's very beautiful to me about the description of what the Jewish people went through before they were freed from Egypt and ultimately led to the Holy Land. We read in sentence 7, Vanitzak El Hashem Elokei Avotenu, when we were in Egypt and we were undergoing great difficulties, great struggles. They were torturing us in Mitzrayim. We screamed to God. We shouted out to God. We were screaming, Vanitzak El Hashem Elokei Avotenu. And I don't know how to read the Torah well, but the sound I can be read as Zakef Gadol, can be read as Vanitzak. You know, like I don't know if that's the best way to read as Zakef Gadol, but it surely can be read that way. Shall we put a little bit of the screaming sound into the musical cantillation? You have to ask people who are experts at Kriyat Torah. But I think that it can be done. Vanitzak El Hashem Elokei Avotenu. At our Seder, this year is one of the Pesukim that's quoted in the order of discussion at the Seder, in the Haggadah Shel Pesach. We actually discuss and elucidate the text of Parshat Bikurim, as is mentioned in the very beginning of Parshat Ki Tavo. We go through each of the phrases and we then discuss them. That's in the standard Haggadah. This year at the section, when we were discussing about how the Jewish people screamed to God, as is mentioned in Parshat Ki Tavo, we instituted the custom. I don't know if it'll happen next year, but okay, what happened last year? Everyone at the table, all of our children, we all started screaming. And it was like, and everybody's screaming. We spent at least, I don't know how long it was, I don't know if it was a minute or something, screaming. And some of the younger children thought it was just silly, and then they realized that we were trying to reenact that which we were reading about, what it means to scream to God. But I'm not saying that screaming necessarily means vocal screaming, although it does say Vayishma Hashem et Kolenu. The Chafetz Chaim points out, commentaries point out, it doesn't say Vayishma Hashem et Tefilatenu. Vayishma Hashem et Kolenu. God heard our voice. Our voice. Is the Hebrew word kol connected to the English word call? I don't know, but we were calling out with our call. But Vayishma Hashem et kolenu. God heard our cries, our scream. And one of the principles of the Exodus from Egypt, one of the messages of the Exodus is that when the Jewish people went through suffering, it wasn't merely the righteousness of the Jewish people which saved them. It wasn't only the fact that God had guaranteed our ancestors that we would get out of the slavery eventually, but it seems from the section of study in Parshat Ki Tavo that it was a result of the fact that the Jewish people turned to God with fervent prayer, with deep felt prayer. In certain sources it says that when you scream, it's not just coming from your mouth, it's coming from inside. It's like a deep felt expression. Maybe therefore it's so much more effective. And we always read Parshat Ki Tavo before Rosh Hashanah. We have a tradition that you don't raise your voice in speaking to God generally. The rabbis teach that the person who insists on only speaking in a loud voice to God may be implying that God cannot hear their prayers if it's said in a soft whisper. So maybe sometimes it's not recommended. The traditional way of reciting the Amidah is not in a loud voice. The traditional way of reciting the Amidah is in a soft voice, in a low voice. But maybe there are times The rabbis teach that maybe they instituted.
Boris, can I call you back, please?
We're talking about calling back. That's the whole thing, right?
Calling
back. I think all calling is calling back.
No, this is a person who has cerebral palsy.
May they be healed immediately in the merit of mercy. Where are they in Israel?
And in Jerusalem.
Okay, so we will say.
And I met him, and he's a poet. He's a very interesting person.
We could say a joint prayer for him. We hope that he should be immediately healed. And that the joint merit of all of the people,
he was born, and
all the people praying here and all the people praying as they listen to this video. I mean, the joint prayer. Maybe God should hear our screams and our pleas in His behalf, and immediately heal him. So what I was saying was that the rabbis speak about how prayer should be in a silent voice. In Masechet Sotah teaches that God didn't want to embarrass anyone. Let's say a person is discussing with God a personal matter or an aspect of a transgression or of a sin, so no one else has to hear it. But nevertheless, could it be that Vanitzak implies that at certain special, crucial emergencies, there is a concept of tza'akah, which is one of the forms of prayer. Interestingly enough, Parshat Ki Tavo is always read a little bit more than a week before Rosh Hashanah. It's read at the very end of the Jewish calendar year. And one of the notions of Rosh Hashanah prayers is maybe we have to re-strengthen ourselves in the fact that when we call out to God, Vayishma Hashem et koleinu, that God does listen and that God does respond to our prayers. There's so many people who feel that it's the same if you pray, you don't pray. Vayishma Hashem et koleinu is ever so important, and that may be the reason why the traditional reading on the first day of Rosh Hashanah throughout the Jewish community, in all communities as far as I know in the world, is they read the story of Hagar and Yishmael, who were struggling in the desert. Remember that? In the book of Bereshit, that's the reading of Rosh Hashanah.
Dying of thirst.
I'm sorry? The dying of thirst, yes, that's correct. And it says there that Hagar is crying, Vatisad Kolah. She raises her voice, Vateif, and she's in tears. Vayishma Elokim et Kol Hanar, and God listens to the voice, to the call of the young man. Maybe even someone on the level of Hagar, maybe even someone on the level of Yishmael. There's a response to the prayer. And maybe we read this particular section about how we recall that which God did to our nation in Egypt, that God responded to strengthen ourselves, that God will answer all of the prayers. We hope that any person who is in Egypt, in any form of Egypt, in any form of constriction, for anyone who's in any form of desert, anyone who's in any form of desperate need of thirst, of water, of Torah, of kindness, God should answer all of their prayers, and we should become strengthened from our study of Parshat Ki Tavo, especially those of us who are privileged to be here in Eretz Yisrael, welcoming all of the other people soon to join with us way before Rosh Hashanah. May Hashem answer everyone's prayers. May this coming year be the most beautiful, blessed, happy, healthy, and sweet year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Misha berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo V'Imotenu Saror Rivka Rachel Leah Yivarech V'Yapeh Chazek V'Yitzar V'Yishmor Et Yirmiyahu ben Priva Nechama V'Tzara Shirel Bat Loren V'et